How much do you know about the app marketplace inside Microsoft Teams? I think every time I've touched it in videos on this channel, it's just been to access Microsoft's first-party apps like Shifts, check out this video if that's of interest, or to work with a tool such as Dataverse for Teams through the Power Apps app. However, Teams, like so many of Microsoft's tools, is richly extendable to provide whatever features you need, and the app marketplace gives you access to new features developed both in your business and by third parties. This video has been sponsored by Teamflect, which is one of the apps you'll find in the Teams app marketplace, and we're going to be using their meetings and performance management app as an example later on in this video. But first, let's talk more generally about Teams apps. What are they? Why might you want them? And what can they do? Much of the content on this channel is about Power Platform, and tools like Power Apps certainly offer you a rich capability to bring apps directly inside of Microsoft Teams. Your in-house published Power Apps are even featured in the Teams app marketplace. However, while Power Platform offers amazing capabilities, it isn't the right answer for every scenario. While starting with a blank sheet of paper can be very tempting, it can also be expensive and time-consuming. For small businesses without any Power Platform experts, getting something with equivalent functionality and robustness as a commercial tool can mean a steep learning curve. You'll learn that one of the most important factors in the success of larger Power Platform projects is considering what is already out there and building on those foundations. The right way to use Power Platform is to be the glue between tools built by Microsoft, like Dynamics 365, and those built by independent software vendors, not to reinvent the wheel for every project. So consequently, the contents of the Teams app marketplace can appeal in one of two scenarios. Either you've already invested in an app like the Adobe Suite and you want to extend the capabilities of Creative Cloud into Teams, or there are specific capabilities you're lacking within Teams. For example, you're finding tracking the actions of one-on-one meetings difficult, and so you seek out an app from the Teams marketplace like Teamflect. Benefit of a Teams app is you aren't having to move from where you're working to somewhere else, and so you're not losing the flow of your work. By being able to keep your context of what you're doing alongside who you are doing it with, like in a chat or a channel, you can focus on the what instead of focusing on the how, and you can end up being more productive. At their core, Teams apps are a special access route built through Teams to access the resources of a web app that'll be hosted somewhere else like Azure. They come in different flavors such as tabs, bots and messaging extensions, and now you're able to build apps that provide shared capabilities across Teams, Outlook, and Microsoft 365. And depending on what you want to achieve, you can build them either in JavaScript or using SharePoint Framework, as well as a selection of other languages and frameworks. This, though, is not a no to low code experience like when you're using Power Apps. While you can build Power Apps that are used within Teams, when we talk about Teams apps, we're generally referring to tools that require pro code skills to build. What makes Teams apps special is that they have awareness of the Teams environment they're in. For example, if you build a tab app, that app will know the ID of the user using Teams and can use other capabilities such as single sign-on to create a really fluid experience. For this reason, Teams apps expose capabilities for integration that can make them appealing to a lot of different scenarios, and often they will both wrap around existing commonly used Teams features or underlying data in Microsoft 365. It may also be the case that certain Teams app features become a critical conduit through which Microsoft 365 Copilot and other AI features are able to branch beyond your Microsoft 365 tenant, interacting with the apps and data you have inside other ecosystems outside of Microsoft 365. At Microsoft Build a couple of weeks back, Copilot plugins were announced, and alongside the ChatGPT plugin framework and Power Platform connectors, Teams messaging extensions were highlighted as a third way to extend Copilot's capabilities. So if you're working with a third-party app that's Teams-based, or you have an existing platform you work on that has an offering in the Teams app marketplace, the foundations are there for you to be able to interact with it through Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that's the background of Teams apps. Let's jump into Teams and take a look at what apps such as Teamflect has to offer and how it interacts with your existing Teams capabilities. So to get started with any app in Teams, you're going to come down to the apps icon on the left side of your client. And just to point out, at the time of recording this, if you're currently using the new client, you won't be able to do this. So you're going to need to jump back to the classic client in order to use apps, and apps will be coming to the new client at some point in the near future. So we're going to click on apps, and we're going to see here that there's a whole bunch of apps. And the easiest thing to do is to just search for the app that you're looking for. So in this case, we're looking for Teamflect. We just start typing and you see Teamflect appears here. So you open it up and you've got the opportunity to add it. But with any app, you should probably take a look at some of the information here before you add it. And one of the important things to understand is what features is this bringing into your team's environment. So in this case, this app brings in tab apps, a bot, messaging extensions, and a personal app. And also you should take a look at the permissions. What data is this app going to use in relation to your Microsoft 365 usage? So you can see here that this provides an outline of the different things that it may do with your data. And this is just something you're going to want to review to make sure that you're comfortable. Now, not all apps in the App Store are free. Teamflect is something that you can buy a subscription for. It's free for up to 10 users, but beyond that, you're going to buy a subscription. And if you can buy a subscription, or you should buy a subscription, that will be available in here. Or for certain apps where you're buying a subscription through a third party, it may just be a free app in Teams, but you'll still have to pay your licensing fees to the third party through some other means. So depending on what it is and what you're looking at, the layout of this may change a little. So we're just going to go ahead and click on Add. And this is now going to add in the Teamflect app. So you can see that I have the Teamflect app on the left-hand side here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just sign in. And again, I get this list of permissions that I'm able to consent to. Because I'm using an administrative account here, I am able to consent on behalf of my organization. So in that case, I can give the app permission across the organization, or otherwise I can just click on accept and I'll be accepting those permissions. And you can see I now am in Teamflect. So Teamflect gives you the ability to do quite a number of different things. It has a goals module, a meetings module, some recognition. There are tasks in there, there's reviews, and there's surveys. So I can select which one I'm interested in, and then I can select whether I'm planning to use this with my team or across my organization. So in this case, I'll just say my team, and I'll say there are 1 to 10 people. And then I can select whether I'm a manager of people or not. And I can add in some of my direct reports. So let's add in Miriam here. And I won't send a message right now. I'll just go ahead and invite. And the last thing it wants me to do is just right click up here on the app and pin it. And if you are an administrator and you're rolling this out across your organization, then obviously you can pin this through the Teams admin center anyway. So if you want a particular look and feel of this left bar, then you are able to set that up via the Teams admin center. So here I've jumped into a demo account to show you what this looks like when it's all set up. So you can see here on the left bar, I have my Teamflect app. And if I go into my Teamflect app, you can see everything that is part of Teamflect. So I have a home page which gives me an overview as to what's going on. And then these other aspects down here are what are referred to in the admin controls as modules. So you can turn these modules on or off depending on what you want to do inside your particular organization or team. But from here on my home page, I can see the meetings that I have upcoming. I can see goals and I can see tasks. And I have access to a few other things. And what Teamflect really allows me to do is to hone the relationships that I have with the people I work with, the people I meet with through Teams. So it gives me the ability to enhance my Teams meeting usage so that I can track what the actions are that are coming out of those meetings, and what the points I want to talk about are that are going into those meetings, and then to be clear on the goals and the accomplishments that come come with them, right the way from setting a task all the way up to dealing with performance reviews once a year or once every 6 months, however you do that in your particular organization. So you might be looking at this and saying, well, this is just a web app. We're just looking at a web page. Why is it so special that this is within Teams? And the point with a Teams app is that you can jump into different aspects of Teams. So let's, for example, take a look at our Teams channels. And depending on what the capabilities of your particular app are, you'll be able to do different things. But in this case, I have a team here and I have a goals tab. Now the goals tab is part of Teamflect. So I'm able to jump in here and I'm able to look at goals that are specifically related to this team. So I'm going to go ahead and click on new goal, and I can set myself as the owner of this goal. I'm just going to call it demo goal. And you can see down here I have a related group, and you can see it's already pre-populated with the team that I'm in. So I can go ahead, let's say this is going to be a quarter 2 goal, because that's the quarter that I have highlighted up here. And I'm just going to say create. My goal is going to be created. You can see that I have my goal here. So that's one way that Teamflect has the context of what's going on in Teams. So let's take a look at a chat. So I have a chat here with Michael Douglas, and one of the things I can do is if I jump up to the user profile, you can see that I can jump straight into his user profile in Teamflect. I can look at the meetings that I have going on with him, upcoming meetings and ones that have already happened. So if I want to refer back to something that happened in a meeting, I can do that from here. Now, obviously, if you were keeping notes within your meeting in Teams, you could do this as well, but you couldn't do it from your chat window. You would have to jump out, go into your calendar, find your meeting, and then look at it there. So this isn't doing something that is radically different to what Teams is able to do to begin with. What it's doing is layering on additional functionality so that if this aligns with the way that you use Teams in your organization, you can benefit from these extra capabilities that you're getting here. And this is really the big benefit of Teams apps, is that they're able to interact with Teams in that way. So if I jump back into my chat, another thing that I can do here is I can use messaging extensions. So if I come down under my message and I take a look at the Teamflect tab down here, you can see that that goal that I just created, I can actually share that with Michael and go ahead and send that. And then Michael has that goal in this chat. So I have the ability to talk about different things that are going on, to talk about goals and tasks and so on and so forth across the organization in my chats, in my meetings here. So let's take a look at that meetings experience. I'm going to go down to my calendar and let's take a look at what I've got going on tomorrow, say. So I'm going to look at a meeting at 11 a.m. I've got a meeting with, let's just see who this is with. That's with John Munro. So from here, I can jump into my Teamflect meeting. And you can see here, I can add in talking points that I want to talk about. I can add in attachments, different aspects of what's available in Teamflect. I can add notes that are shared between me and the people in the meeting, or I can put my private notes in here. But I can also jump back into the Teamflect app, and if I remember the right meeting, I'm going to go into my meetings and I'm going to say I want the meeting that is tomorrow at 11 a.m. and I'm going to jump into that meeting. I get exactly the same information. So whether you want to look at this from the context of your calendar or whether you want to look at it from the context of the Teamflect app, it's going to show you exactly the same information. So you have different options as to how you're going to use it. And then there are other things that it does that sit outside of Teams, things like surveys, for example. So I could go ahead and there's surveys here that I need to complete this onboarding survey, for example. And you can see I've got a completely separate item that's within Teamflect here that I can go ahead and I can do whatever I need to do here and submit my survey, and then that survey is finalized. So we can send surveys within the organization. I understand that you can also send surveys outside of the organization as well. And equally, there's a feedback request mechanism here, so I can send a reminder to someone that they need to give me feedback, or I can see completed feedback in here as well, or create new feedback for someone. So I can give feedback to someone else in my organization and feedback on whatever it is that they need feedback on, and then send that across. And you can see here that an interesting feature, everything is getting AI now. So I can take a look at a summary of my feedback here with AI. And you can see that it gives me a AI generated summary. So that's really a very quick understanding of what Teamflect does. But for the purposes of this video, you can see that it's really layering on top of Teams. Now, one of the things that I think is important to mention is how it layers on top of Teams. Now, obviously, in a lot of the videos I put out on this channel, I talk about manipulating what is data that sits within Microsoft 365. So when you're using one of these third-party apps, it may be that some of your data is going outside of Microsoft 365 because you're using functionality that's being delivered through a web app that's sitting in Azure or AWS or somewhere else. Just because you are seeing this inside of Teams, it is not necessarily all sitting within your Microsoft 365 tenant. If you are under the requirements of any particular compliance standards, say something like GDPR, then you need to make sure that that data is being dealt with in a way that meets that compliance. Now, in the case of Teamflect, a lot of the data is inside of Teams. It's manipulating the data that exists within your meetings and your tasks and so on and so forth. But there is some data that's sitting outside of Microsoft 365 as well. Outside of Teams, Teamflect is also available through the web and from Outlook. So even if your organization is a mix of Teams users and those who never touch Teams, you can still use it. And this is the case for a lot of apps that you'll see in the Teams marketplace. I think the way Teamflect approaches adding value to your meetings and team relationships by focusing on recording actions and performance is really smart. It's also a really good example of the way a third-party app can layer functionality on top of Teams, not to do something entirely different, but to reinforce the capabilities that already exist in different ways. It's probably for this reason that this was an app Microsoft chose to highlight in one of its Teams blog posts. I'd like to thank Teamflect for giving me the opportunity to tell you more about the Teams app marketplace by sponsoring this video. If their app is something that interests you, then please go and check it out. There's a link below to their website. But even if that's not what you're looking for, hopefully seeing the range of apps available in Teams is helpful. And in the future, with the advent of Microsoft 365 Copilot and Teams messaging extensions being one of Copilot's plugin types, having knowledge of this app ecosystem may be all the more important to many organizations. If you're looking at different apps to add some functionality that you don't already have and you're not sure which one to proceed with, then you may want to check out this video that I made recently about how to select software for your small business. Which apps do you rely on in Teams? Let me know down in the comments. I hope this has been useful for you. Thank you for watching, and thank you Teamflect. Until next time, bye bye.